So this is surprising.
Yeah, as far as we know, the person who was gonna interview me got COVID, so then they asked Peter. So let's see. Peter is wild at a Q&A. Let's see what happens.
I have so many questions for you. What should we have for dinner tomorrow night? I was thinking back to, it's funny, I know the answers to so many of these questions. I know that you've had other ideas for movies before this one, for many years. And I would actually say, when I first met you, you finished a screenplay.
Yeah, but I was 22. It was
So how long had that been going on for before I met you?
How long had that been going on?
Yeah, the idea, you were clearly at that point, and this is like 20 years ago, already thinking in terms of being a filmmaker.
That's interesting. I didn't even think about that. I have a stock answer to the question, and that really does fuck it up. Yeah, and well, the truth is, I think I have always been a director. I just didn't feel, I didn't feel entitled to want it. And so maybe you're right. Maybe I did know before, but I guess to me it felt like it kind of emerged over the past few years. You know, as I just got tired of backing up against a boundary that I feel like actors, I mean, you feel it too, you know. I think that there are not very many people who, I feel like people don't love actresses with ideas. I'm not sure if you feel that way too, but I think you do.
That I don't.
No, that for actors, is it the same way?
No, it's not the same way. It's definitely not the same way. I've done many projects with powerful women who've gone on to do successful things, and it always seems like it's an uphill fight, especially in certain departments. You know, I'm thinking of like Kim Pierce doing Boys Don't Cry, for example. And, you know, I think a lot of the women that I've met over the course of the years who are directors were the most intense people I've worked with, as if they had to like smash down the wall.
Was I like that?
No. Maggie whispers. So the beginning of this whole thing, I remember you coming in and saying that you were going to adapt this book.
You do?
Yeah, completely. I remember when you came in, you know, like I said, for me, this is not at all the first time I've heard you talk about being a filmmaker and adapting something even. So when you came in to talk about doing it, I have a very we call it like an Eeyore idea of what Hollywood is. And so when anyone has like a good idea, I say, oh, that's really great, but it'll never happen. And I think I was like that a fair portion of the way. How did you manage to get liftoff? You did it on your own, you know?
I think my producers, Talia Kleinhendler and Osnat Handelsman-Karen, had a lot to do with liftoff. I mean, all of us, the three of us as women, we had made The Kindergarten Teacher together that I acted in, but they produced, and the brilliant Sarah Colangelo directed. And I think we were kind of used to, and I'm sure many women in the room can relate to this, someone tells you no, and you're like, right, but let's just see if we go around the back, if there's a way in. And okay, ultimately someone tells you no, there's no way to go further, you have to accept that. But we were told no a whole lot. And I mean, in fact, we hit up against a pandemic, you know, like many films, but we ended up being one of the first films that wasn't going back into production, but was just starting production, and certainly one of the first independent films to go back in, because we were like, we see a way that this is possible. And so they really helped me with liftoff. I mean, I remember when we arrived in Greece, it made such a huge impact on me that you said, you did this. Like, you got us here. It was August of 2020. We traveled with our family to Greece. We looked like Daft Punk. we were like completely covered, and nobody knew how to travel then, and yet we got somewhere safe, and again, we've sort of made we never said this out loud, but I think we're both trying not to repeat anything we've said in any other Q&A right now.
I always do that, honey.
It's true, you do, but I'm really trying not to. But I was saying we arrived somewhere safe in the middle of a pandemic. It was safe. I mean, there were no cases on this island. But more than that, I think, when I started to mention about, being an actor who has ideas, bumping up against an edge of what I'm able to express, and finally getting to a place where I was tired of that. And I also wanted to provide that kind of freedom and that space for the people who were working with me, because I know that's where good work happens in my own experience. But also because I was so hungry for it, and I thought, you know what, I mean, there are a few people I've worked with over the years who offered that.
I mean, to me, I was thinking of, when you always get asked, like, who influenced you or what influenced you, I start to think of some of the extraordinary people that we've both known, like Penny.
Yeah, that's true. I never talk about her. She was our acting teacher who died.
But even like Austin Pendleton.
Yeah, who we worked with.
Who we had, like, as actors, that's just the most fun you'll ever have in your life, and to create. And to me, it's like what you do is that it's like a really comfortable place to act in, but it has the focus that Penny talked about.
Right, Austin Pendleton is just, he's an actor and a director. He directed Peter and I in 2 Chekhov plays we did together, and he's sort of just like, make the freedom, create the freedom for actors, and then play jazz. Penny, our teacher, is much more specific, and also believes in that creating freedom. Well, really, look, finding a part, and this is the same. It's the same from the point of view of a director. Hiring people where you see not just that they've never done something before, but that they will need to move or shift or grow in some way in order to do that part at all. And then being really curious and respectful and actually loving to the person that's playing the role. Then you get to watch somebody on screen actually learning something instead of watching them pretend to learn something. And Penny, Austin was sort of just like created that mixture and then sort of said, go. And so there were a lot of times you felt really at sea and really lost. There's not space for that in a film. I really don't think there is. I think in a play where you're rehearsing for 6 weeks, there is, but Penny really taught me how to then get in the current, how to access myself in order to...
Because with Austin, the play is never done.
Right.
He comes and sees it throughout the run. It's just a growing thing. But with Penny, it's different. And I do think that it is worth talking about her, because I see so much of the way you work in terms of the way you see scenes is coming from that.
Yes, I do think that. And even adapting, writing, taking a book that exists in its own right and turning it into something cinematic is a very similar muscle to the muscle that it takes to look at a text as an actor. Why does this scene need to exist in this film at this moment? Why do I think it needs to exist? And what do I want to express through through the storytelling that I have access to. It's true. It's very similar in terms of writing and directing. What is the event of the scene? Ideally, it's never literal. I mean, I'm not interested in movies. I'm really not ever, I think, interested in movies where what the scene is really fundamentally about is articulated in the scene. Because I want the scene to be about something so unusual and interesting that it can't be articulated, that you're like, ooh, it's the vibrating of this, what this person needs and what this person needs, and the circumstance that creates what the event of the scene is. And yeah, Penny taught me that from the very subjective point of view of an actress. And then she died, and it was, really interesting to see what happened when your teacher dies, because, then it could become yours. Then really it has to become yours. So yeah, she is someone who really influenced me. What else you got?
It's funny to ask you all these questions that I know the answers to, but I was wondering about your initial, so the movie was conceived to be shot in the United States, on the East Coast, right? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine, so I'll fill in the blanks, it was New Jersey, and then Nova Scotia possibly, and then Greece was like really,
it was because
really
of the pandemic, sort of. Should I tell this story?
No, can you imagine the movie that was shot in New Jersey? Can you subtract the Grease from this movie and really fully imagine what that might have been like, the most successful version?
No, it's like, this is so Austin Pendleton, this is so great, because the best thing that Austin Pendleton offered us, I remember we started working together on Uncle Vanya, and he was so great. He stood up and he was the director all of a sudden, whereas before he'd been this like totally diminutive, don't take me seriously. All of a sudden he stood up in rehearsal and he was like, okay, so whoever you imagined Sonia or Astrov or Yelena was gonna be, fine. But look across the table at who it actually is. And what your fantasy of it is. I mean, it's not like you have to erase it. That's fine. Let it vibrate off of who is actually sitting across the room. But that is Astrov, not whoever you imagined. It's the same with Greece. It's like we took a long, circuitous, strange route to get to Greece. We for sure did. But it's Greece. I mean, how could Lyle be anyone but Ed Harris? How could Hardy be anyone but you? How could Leda be anyone but Jesse and Olivia? No, I can't imagine it at all. It's like a thing that fell away. It's like a skin on a snake that fell away.
Yeah, and we went and visited there.
It was so weird. We went to Cape May where we were maybe going to shoot the movie, but the truth is, I won't tell the long story. Yeah. Okay, but we had the money to make the movie in New Jersey, and I'm sure you can imagine that this was not an easy movie to get money for. But New Jersey has a 37% tax incentive, 2 extra % if you are minority, which we were considered as women, which is fair enough. And so we had 37%, and we were starting to go, and it really isn't where the adaptation was meant to be set. It was meant to be set in a kind of unnamed, originally. It was based on a book that takes place in southern Italy, and I adapted it to take place in Maine, even though we didn't name it. Lobster rolls and boardwalks, but Maine has a 5% tax incentive. And so then they were like, how about Jersey? And so we went there and it was okay. And I was, I don't know, I had a hook in my heart about Jersey. But it was moving very, very fast, and we were getting our money, and it seemed as if it was gonna work, and then the pandemic happened. And look, I'm telling the story. And for a few weeks we like everyone else in the world, thought, it's all right, it's gonna be okay, we're gonna shut down for a few weeks and we'll get back up and running. And so we were doing budget meetings, we were using them and pre-production as a kind of salve. But at a certain point it got, and you really helped me with this actually. I think, yeah. I was saying to you, not only is New Jersey impossible because there's so many cases there, but also it's wrong. And I wrote this like 4-paragraph long essay about why New Jersey was wrong. And it's funny,
You should publish these at some point.
I'm sure I have them in like my notes on my phone.
The Elena Ferrante letter.
The why to keep the orgasm in and the deuce.
Right.
Yeah,
Getting kids into a camp.
No, but I wrote this essay about why Jersey was wrong in the same energy, from the same place that I, since I had become a producer on The Deuce, had been writing essays about all sorts of things, trying to get what I wanted artistically across. And, it was like perfect, my essay. I worked on it, was funny, not too pushy, just perfectly written and articulated. And on The Deuce, when I would do things like that, I saw an early cut, I needed this, I needed that. I would get like, 20% of what it was I was hoping for. And here I wrote this essay and everyone said, great, let's go back to the drawing board. And I was really stunned. I was like, right, this is why I wanted to do this. This is my film. And I don't want to get pushed into shooting it in New Jersey if New Jersey isn't right. Of course, you have to compromise in so many ways. There are so many things I compromise. We had 28 days to make the movie. There's a lot of compromise, but there are things you can't compromise. And sometimes they're not at all the things you think. Like, I wanted to shoot, basically every scene I shot, start to finish. I really didn't go, okay, now stand on your mark and come into your close-up. I mean, like the flea market scene with Dakota and Olivia, where she says she left her kids. We shot every time, all the way through, and it was a much longer scene originally. And I think in a lot of films, probably, you would have just gone in where they landed. But how can you do beautiful work like that? You can't really.
Well, I mean, one question I have is just about the cinematic language of the movie, because that's what surprised me, as someone who's known you a very long time. I knew the way that you would write dialogue, all of that, but when I saw the film, it just has this very strong language. I'm curious how much shooting in Greece had to do with the language. Can you imagine, would it have been a similar language? Let's go back to New Jersey one more time.
Fine.
Because I really don't know what a lot of the references you had for the language that you came up with. It seemed to me from the outside that this was something that you arrived at a place, that you would arrive at a place to visit. We had been near there before. And you just started seeing this place in a particular way.
I don't think so, actually.
Really?
No, I think what the scenes were about was totally what was driving me. And yes, Greece was like a character in the scene. But so much of the work I did with Helene, we did Helene Louvard, who's the brilliant cinematographer. We did a lot of work during the pandemic over Zoom, hours every day without a location, imagining, sort of imaginary locations, imaginary, like what's that book you have? Imaginary Places, shot listing.
The Dictionary of Imaginary Places.
Yeah, like almost like shot listing in these imaginary places in our minds, not trying to solidify anything, but trying to understand what the scenes were about. And that was what drove everything. And yeah, I mean, I saw you were nodding, like, what's the cinematic language? There were certainly films that influenced me, that speak to me, that I am turned on by. Like, for instance, we were just listening to Matteo Garrone talk in a little short interview, but I remember seeing Gomorrah And Gomorrah is a film where nothing is literal. Nothing is explained to you. I had to pee so bad when we went to go see that movie, and I did not get up from my seat because I was so invested and was afraid that I was going to miss something. And I was so respected by the filmmaker. Or Lucretia Martel, when I saw La Cienega, I was like, is there something wrong with me that I'm imagining this perverse relationship between these two characters? Is that implicit in the movie, or is it just coming from me? That is what she creates for everyone who watches her movies. Your like deep investment and involvement emotionally, your own self in the storytelling. So then I also think the thriller aspect of the movie, the whodunit, who's lost, what are the consequences going to be? That is not the road through the movie, but they are a kind of scaffolding, that kind of thriller format that allows me real freedom of expression inside of that. I found that as an actress, when a script was real tight, when a plot was very simple and clear, you were allowed way more freedom of expression, the strangest kinds of expression. The onus wasn't on you to tell the story with your emotional expression. And so I think I was sort of playing with two things cinematically. One is leaning on the beautiful kind of Italian neorealist, thriller, classic, beautiful versions of that, even in terms of kind of objectifying women, looking at like Antonioni and the way he shoots Monica Vitti, and not objectifying, observing, adoring, creating a compelling relationship with an observed woman, and then cracking it open.
Well, I think that's very interesting, being a man watching the movie a lot of the time. It's like you're watching a woman observe this woman in this, bikini on the beach.
Well, you're watching a woman observe a woman observing a woman
right.
on the beach.
That's right. And it's perplexing in a great way as a guy watching the movie.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this moment it wasn't an early cut and is in the movie, where she grabs her own ass.
Yeah.
And like a moment like that, there's just something so violent about the gesture. And it's also, we've all been looking at her ass on some level, And like moments like that, did they come in the edit, or is that something that you had in mind early on? The actress did it, because it really means something to me when I watch the movie.
Yeah. No, I think that moment, we created a situation where Dakota's character and Dakota was being observed. Dakota came to me and said, I read the script, I want to do this movie. This movie offers something to me, offers me the opportunity to express something that I want to express. And that's a perfect match. That doesn't mean necessarily it's right, but it was. And we talked a lot, and she came to us with an artistic agenda, which is true of any good actor. I think not like she knew exactly what she wanted to express, but she knew something was there to mine. Then she comes to work, and we had 5 days to shoot everything on the beach. We didn't shoot in order, but it turned out that the beginning first few days were all the stuff of her being observed in a bikini. And I think it was really frustrating for her. I think she's had a career of that. And in fact, I was playing with, like I was saying, this kind of observing, and not observing in the real, not sort of objectifying, like stupid way, which I don't actually think anyone thinks is hot if they really ask themselves. I'm talking what's really hot, like those Godard women, and to me, and Monica Vitti, and like I'm saying, like I want her some way, Monica Vitti, right? But I've cut my hair like every single woman in every Godard movie. I want their sweaters, I want to touch them, I want to be like them. And so I'm trying to create that real compelling thing, but she is being objectified. That is what's happening in a way. So then mixed with, she knows that there's space for her expression coming. So it gave her a lot of space in that little scene with Ollie where they're fighting, where she grabs her ass. I didn't tell her to grab her ass. I gave her some ideas and pushed her in some directions, and she grabs her ass. It's awesome. And I'm gonna make sure it gets in the movie, you know? And then I really love that scene that follows all of this, her being observed, not speaking, where she basically bursts into the frame. And a lot of people comment to me on that scene, oh, we're so close on her, we hold on her so long. And I think, yeah, but you're not gonna see what you need to see in a medium shot. What needs to be communicated in that scene from this quiet woman, you're only gonna see super tight. And it isn't being communicated on the line. So why do I hold on her so long? Because she's not done expressing what it is she needs to express.
Well, it feels like her entrance into the movie, because the rest of it, you're not really, with her.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about Jessie Buckley before we run out of time.
Okay, let's do it. She's amazing.
Riff on how awesome Jessie Buckley is. By the way, if anyone is going to London, she's apparently absolutely incredible in Cabaret.
Yeah, it looks like
it's
it.
on right now. And she's just such a absolutely stunning talent.
I know. Riff on Jessie Buckley. You riff on Jessie Buckley.
I think Jessie Buckley is the best. We joke about how sometimes she answered the phone with her left hand and sometimes with her right hand, and like, who does that in life? I always answer the phone with my right hand. Because she's just complete. She gives herself more freedom than, like, I've been acting a very long time, than many of the actors I've acted with.
Oh, I think she's brilliant. And you used a really wonderful word to describe her, which is buoyant. And also, I've talked a lot about, having two full, brilliant, formidable actresses playing the same part. And that was a kind of a dangerous thing. It became really clear to me that, because this is really a movie for adults, nobody was ever going to believe, unless you're 4 years old, that this is actually one person. That's not the idea. And especially in a movie that really gets all of its gas from being really honest. We can't try to pull the wool over anyone's eyes about anything. So the thing was it became very clear to me that the idea, the thing I was gonna try to do was make a kind of poetic agreement with the audience where, for the purposes of our film, for 2 hours, can we agree that these two actresses are gonna play the same person and tell the story together? Which meant that they could be as different as they wanted, that there was no onus on either of them to imitate the other, or to, so they're both totally free. And what you said, did I say this already, that Jessie is buoyant. And Olivia is something totally different than that. So in fact, the more different they are, the more interesting whatever life you get to imagine that happened in between when she was 28, she was 48 is,
Yeah, I mean, it's so nice to see an actor that goes toward the light, you know what I mean? Like, so many actors out there, myself included at times, it's like a way to express things that you don't express in life, and it's a kind of just emotional vent for yourself. With her, it just feels all so in the service of something very positive.
Her need
is really, I think, what we need. Thank you so much, Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Thank you.